What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Flailing Forward podcast. I'm Dustin Seiler here with my co-host Heather Witzig. Hey, Heather.
Hello.
This is one of our Flailing Forward forums where we get to interview a guest and talk about all things flailing, taking action, even when you feel like you might be out of control, because looking back at it, a lot of times you find out you're making progress and you're learning lessons along the way. So the important thing is that you keep going. So our guest today, Heather, you know a lot better than I do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and let you introduce him.
Yes. Okay. So we've got Ryan McDermott here. He's an entrepreneur and real estate investor who hails from Long Island, New York. He's actually got an impressive portfolio, valued over $5 million, actually with a remarkable 100% occupancy rate. And he's established himself as a prominent figure in the industry. And now Ryan's kind of letting the cat out of the bag, and he's venturing into private equity, where he's going to be leveraging his expertise to launch his own fund. And he's really just poised to make a significant impact in the financial landscape. So here we are. We've got Ryan McDermott here.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you for having me. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Dustin.
Great to have you with us.
Thank you.
So Ryan, because like I said, Heather knows you a little bit better than I do. Give us a little bit of your background, how you got started in real estate and everything, sort of what got you into it, and kind of the initial beginning of your journey.
Sure, absolutely. So I got into real estate probably about anywhere between 8 to 10 years ago. Don't know the exact date. It was right after Hurricane Sandy here on Long Island, and certain parts of Long Island got completely decimated. A lot of real estate, a lot of houses went underwater, a lot of particular areas were just completely destroyed. So at that point, my brother and I put a little nest egg together, and we decided to invest in a beach community that my mother grew up in. So we were familiar from that perspective. And, I was also born there as well. It's not the community I grew up in, but I was born there as well. Now, this community in particular, like I said, right on the beach, nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and the bay. Huge rental potential. Strip of bars. If you're 20 something and live in Nassau County on Long Island, you're making a stop there before you go get married. And you probably don't want to talk about those years to your spouse. Anyway, so now right after Sandy, this place got destroyed. Destroyed. I mean, I was renting down here at the time, right after I moved out of my mom's house, and it was out of a movie. There were army tanks rolling down the street, sand 3 feet high. The boardwalk was one town over. It was pretty brutal.
Wow.
So at that point, everyone was running out of this place like it was on fire. It was insane. It was, like I said, out of a movie. Mm-hmm. And that's when we kind of got an idea, my brother and myself, hey, this could be the perfect opportunity to start buying some real estate down here. We had some money saved, and we were familiar with the area because, like I said, my mother has a history here. And we jumped right in, and we bought a residential home. It's what's considered a mother-daughter. Okay. So there's one unit on the top, one unit on the bottom. Now could be partitioned off into 2 rental spaces, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we bought that pretty cheap, and we rented out the top floor and we rented out the bottom floor, and feeling good about ourselves. It's working. And, year or two goes by, and we start to realize that nobody cares about Hurricane Sandy anymore.
Yeah.
And this place is thriving as if it never happened. And the rent rates are skyrocketing, and the appreciation is skyrocketing. Now, also, mind you, FEMA came in and bailed a lot of people out and dumped a lot of money into the community. So brand new boardwalk, houses are being lifted. Everything is getting a major, major facelift. So they did certain things with the jetties to prevent water getting into the, streets and things like that. So as I mentioned before long, everything back to status quo and actually thriving at this point.
Yeah.
So we turn around and realize that there's almost full equity in this one asset that we purchased just a few years before. And we're renting the top floor at full capacity, and we're renting the bottom floor at full capacity.
And these were long-term rentals?
These were long-term rentals. Yeah, this was a little bit before Airbnb even became popular. Or even I didn't hear about Airbnb until about maybe when everyone else did. This is probably like 2014, 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're renting both on long-term. And then we're like, all right, this is making sense. We're collecting checks. We have all this money sitting in this one acquisition. What do we want to do with this? So we went out and we got a line of credit off that first house. The first floor rent basically services the debt would service the debt on that line of credit. And we bought the exact same model, just like it, because we figured it's working once. A lot of these homes and structures look exactly the same. As I mentioned, every 20-something wants to move down here. There's a fight. I could go to my realtor right now and be like, hey, listen, I have a free unit. And she would throw a stack of papers on my desk and say, pick. You want 3 teachers, you want 2 firemen, you want 2 cops.
Amazing.
And yeah. So we purchased the next model. The next house, the exact same model, like 5 blocks up. Okay. It's about the particular area I'm referring to is called the West End. And it's just one giant long strip of bars. And then it's they call them state streets. About 20 blocks just all the way down. And it's just party central. I mean, the place explodes in the summer and they have this thing called Irish Day in the fall, even though St. Patrick's Day is in March. I think it's just an excuse to drink.
So this all sounds like rainbows and unicorns. There's any flailing forward at all going on in this initial couple first?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we were doing. There was certain renovation that needed to go on with the second project. We definitely overpaid. The timeline we overshot, but because this place was so popular, it almost didn't matter. We overspent here or didn't file this permit there. And, we hit a few bumps along the road. Normally it would have maybe knocked us off our access, but A, we were determined, we're flailing forward. And B, the market was just so hot, it almost didn't matter. So
one thing I love about what you guys did here is you knew your market. When, like you said, everybody else was running away from this place like nobody's business. You guys were running in, like Buffett always says, be courageous when others are fearful, right? You guys are running in because you knew the market and knew where you were working in. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I could give a lot of credit to my mother for that one. She grew up here, and people who grew up in this particular, they have a joke. If you live in the Long Beach, you don't go over the bridge to the next town because it's a small island and you go over the bridge. So my mother grew up here her entire life, and then obviously when my brother and I were born, we moved to about a few towns over, very begrudgingly on her part. It was at my father's insistence. So she's very, very conservative, very calculated, doesn't do it very non-risk adverse, so she doesn't take a lot of risks, but she was pushing it. So me and my brother, like, okay, if mom is pushing this and mom is championing this, we can't fail. And she almost kind of, which was helpful at the time, we were younger. It was, she almost kind of insinuated, hey, if you F up a little bit, I got you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
got a little fail safe there.
A little bit. Yeah. Now, she wasn't going to bail us out of, a $200,000 hole. That was, but if we needed a little patch here or there, what are parents for, really? I mean, if you really So we did that a bunch of times, a bunch of times, all in the same vicinity, and we pretty much have full equity in most of these properties, which is really, really
cool.
That's amazing.
That's so awesome.
We were able to build a substantial reserves account because of it. And the salaries we draw on distributions are pretty consistent because the rental market is so high. I handpicked a lot of these tenants. It's either I vetted them either through a realtor I know and trust or a friend of a friend. And I have family members in a few of these rentals as well. So I actually rent for myself.
Okay.
Nice.
There you go. How strict was your rental application that you submitted to yourself? I mean,
listen, if I was underwriting myself, if I was somebody else underwriting me, I don't know. No,
like,
this guy, I don't know.
Exactly.
And the other thing I noticed that you said too was just that you picked a niche. You picked one lane. You kind of figured out that it worked, and then you kind of replicated it and recycled the same. You didn't have to go out there kind of trying to figure out how to do something different and each time. And I think that really can also help you in the forward movement, is just like, okay, you just carbon copy what you just did. I mean, you already know it, the area, it worked. It's, keep doing it until you're tired of it.
Absolutely. And I think that's such it's not really talked about a lot. You know, I think it's when people hone in on one thing that they know how to really master and specialize, it becomes a little niche product, and that's scalability right there, because now you know exactly how to do it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's the approach we took to it. This worked once. Why won't it work again?
Right. Now, you were getting traditional loans on these initially. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All traditional loans. New York is, we are accustomed to a different sales process, the community we're in. New York is the antithesis of that. Everything is done very traditionally, very litigious, and any quote unquote professional, or real estate professional for that matter, they'll tell you that that's the only way to do it. So yeah, I got them all traditionally, and that kind of segues into the next portion of this. As we did have some success, and quite a lot of success, actually. My brother's a very content gentleman. He is a musician by trade, and I'm an entrepreneur by trade, and I want to own the world, and he wants his guitar, a beer, and his steady checks, and he needs nothing else, and he's good to go. So I always knew there was a better way. And like you to your question about traditional loans, I knew there was a better way to scale. And going out and applying for traditional loans, it's a long process, and it can really limit to what you could do on an annual basis.
Well, you can only have so many in your name, right? And you have to come in with the 20-25% down every time, and it's hard to scale that way.
Yeah.
That's why I think, we're all in the same, sub-2 mentorship. So we can, we've learned, these ways to be able to creatively buy real estate, because there's limitations to that traditional, to the traditional sense.
Exactly. And that's kind of when I started diving into more education, because I knew it was out there. Everyone told me it wasn't, or at least the people I trusted. Not that I don't trust them now, my lawyer, my realtor, they were saying, no, this is the only way you do it. So I knew there was more to it. So I dove in head first and started doing a lot of research, and I stumbled upon this gentleman, just like everybody else, Pace Morby. And I did my homework. I mean, I vetted this guy as best I could. I'm a native New Yorker, so you got to understand. I looked at this guy as a guy on YouTube. Hey, buy free houses. And I'm thinking there was something about him that seemed, something about him that just seemed more genuine or more legit. And I was drawn to that. And I can't normally explain it, because when I pulled the trigger on this course, it's something I never would have done normally, because I'm not going to buy something online if somebody's, pitching this weird idea that I was told. But it was the best decision I ever made. And I jumped into this community head first and started learning all of the new sales processes to acquire these acquisitions that could really allow you to scale. It was the coolest thing in the world.
So once you found Sub2, how did that change what you're doing in your business?
It opened the doors to a lot of new opportunities. Whereas in the past, a door would get shut in my face because I've always had these bigger aspirations. It opened the door. First, it changed my mindset.
Yeah.
And it opened the door to a lot of new opportunities. So as soon as I started learning these processes, well, first I got into Sub2 and I started working for a organization out west just to learn it, because I had no idea. I was green in this particular space. When somebody said the word virtual assistant, I didn't even know if that was a real person. I was like, is that a real person? What is this exactly? So
like Skynet is taking over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm thinking, wait, is this a scam? Am I in it? What's going on here?
Yeah.
So I connected with a few gentlemen who had an wholesale operation out west, learned all about wholesaling, because then that's pretty foreign out here as well. You don't have many wholesalers out here. Just the entire sales process, started getting on the phone, started cold calling, started understanding creative strategies, and it just clicked. And I worked out there, closed a few deals out there, and still then got to the point where I was like, okay, that's cool. But how do I, take it one step further? How do I do this in my own backyard?
Right. When you say where regionally were you working with this team? What area?
They were based out of Nevada, Vegas.
Oh, okay.
To be specific, but we were marketing in Texas, and just marketing in Texas and Nevada.
In Texas. Okay. And I'm sure that this is probably similar. I found that Texas, even the Midwest in general, they're far more open to wholesaling and even some creative options than maybe the East Coast is necessarily. Is that, did you find that?
Yes, 100% unequivocally
But
correct.
you've been actually finding some, ways to get creative in your area now too, haven't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I found a way to kind of merge the two processes. I know I'm never going to change the sales process out here ever. I just won't. It's too litigious. It's too dialed in. It's too rah. It's just never going to happen. But could I utilize some of these acquisition strategies I learned and strategically slip them into applicable situations out here? Absolutely. And that's exactly what we did. We dove into the luxury market because the way we looked at it was, well, if we could do it with a smaller acquisition, it's just a formula.
Yeah. Why
can't it be done on a larger acquisition? And what we also found was some of these, people who own these these high net worth people, I should say, conversation was a lot easier. Okay. They would
they understand.
They understood it. It was just at that point, it just became two high level people looking for a solution.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't necessarily need as much money up front. They're not living paycheck to paycheck a lot of times. And in business, they're used to creative options anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of time they don't want all that liquidity because tax purposes.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, is you're in the luxury market. That's also, there's a lot less buyers in that market too. So you're actually able to come to the table, and bring solutions in that case that, they're probably more open to for that reason.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The buyer's pool for something, the acquisitions we were going after was less than 1%. And a lot of times the sellers, they're just concerned about getting their purchase price and getting a good return on investment.
Yeah.
Half the time they don't even live there. Half the time it's the house where they take their mistress and they just don't want to take a loss on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of things did you take from the Wild West in Texas that you could transition into luxury market in the East Coast? And what kind of bumps and issues did you run into along the way that you had to iron out?
Sure. Great question. So we took the strategies and the problem solving. Again, it was just a mindset shift on how to approach this. Knowing that we can do this, because a year prior or 2 years prior to jumping in, I never would have know how to go about approaching a $7 million acquisition.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have no idea. I would think I'd have to go to the banks and they would shut the door on me. So the mindset shift that it could actually be done.
Mm-hmm.
B, the framing of the conversation. I'm solving a problem here. I'm not going to force this on this guy. If it doesn't make sense for this guy, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I call the next guy and there's an applicable situation and it does make sense and I can solve his problem and we can come to some type of solution because believe it or not, rich people have problems too.
Yep.
Go figure. Yeah.
Yep. That's where we go. And it's just a formula. So it was the mindset shift and the ability to solve the problem.
Gotcha. Interesting. Was it difficult to get that rolling in your area, or once you started having that mind, was the mindset the biggest issue, or did you have to start showing people that it could be done?
The mindset was an issue at first, only because you don't quite feel like you belong there.
Yeah.
But then when you do realize that these people on the other end of the phone are receptive and you start building rapport with them and the conversations are going to the next level and they see that you're credible, you start to feel more credible. You start to feel like you belong there. And that's another reason why I wanted to get into this, is because of the blowback of the network I would be thrusted into. Okay. I'm talking to now hedge fund managers who I'm trying to negotiate his house on, things like that. Whereas, if I'm talking to some guy who hasn't paid his mortgage on a $200,000 home in Oklahoma, okay, that's cool and all, but what's really going to happen after that? There's no relationship after that.
Right.
Okay. So excuse me. That was, the conversations were just that much smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of something that I've learned from you since we've met, was really, just a few tweaks to the terminology you're using and, also your confidence level in your conversations, whether it be with brokers or potential sellers. It's those little tiny tweaks and they make such a big difference. And I think it just really elevates the conversation, elevates, your ability to get the deal done if that's what's going to be, you know, the thing that works for that seller. So it's just, I think just finding those little tiny tweaks was really interesting to learn from you. And where did you sort of learn that? Like, is that something that you learned from somewhere, or just kind of came to it on your own? Or
it came from talking to these gentlemen, picking up on verbiage they used and making a mental note of it, and then using it back on them, mirroring things they would say to me. You know, they would call, instead of a note, they call it a purchase money mortgage. A lot of these guys call balloon payments liquidity events. Just little nuances.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
that I pick up on. I don't ever say sub 2, because that's like, you know, you know, if there's debt on the property, I'll let them know we're going to come and service the debt. It'll come off the DTI. And now that's okay. I get DTI. I'm a banker. I know what you're talking about. So it's just little nuances, and most importantly, the confidence, like you belong there. These guys will sense weakness like that. They'll sense a lack of confidence like that. It's almost, they're trained to do it. But if you come with the confidence and they seem as if you're providing a solution and you're kind of mirroring them in a professional sense, it's almost a much more fun conversation to have.
Yeah.
How would you say, like, that confidence too, you know, when you maybe were first starting having those conversations and you were just sort of picking up cues on terminology and things like that? And did you have some moments where you just didn't feel as confident? And like, what did you do in those moments to sort of fake it until you made it?
Yeah, no, that definitely happened. Well, first, if somebody asked me a question, if I didn't know, obviously I would make a mental note of it. I'm looking that up immediately after I get off the call. I would always pivot to a third party. I would say, you know what, that's a great question. I'm going to run that by my underwriter. So now they're thinking, this kid's got an underwriter? He's legit. So anything I didn't know, I would pivot to another person in my company, a specialist in my company per se.
Yeah. Even when you didn't necessarily have somebody?
Even when I had, when I had nobody.
It was just you. It was just you.
You know, a lot of these hiring guys, they would talk about certain type of loans, and, you know, because obviously there's a big, huge banking community out here. And I would pivot a lot of those, you know, okay, very, you know, well said. Let me ask my underwriter about that. Just certain nuances.
Well, you're not lying. You are your own underwriter. You're just going to take it. You're going to take it from your business to your rental and ask yourself, you know.
And you're, you know, same as, you know, you're the landlord and the renter, you know, you just, you're filling two spots all the time.
Exactly.
until you finally have one. No,
100%.
that's really smart.
It sounds like a lot of the benefit came from getting the reps in, just getting out there and talking to people, learning what they say. You know, we talk a lot about the difference between multifamily terminology and single family terminology, but like you're bringing up, there is a difference between single family normal rates and single family luxury. And it sounds like getting out there and just having those reps with people and talking with people and getting comfortable knowing what they're talking about was a big part of the mindset shift. Did you have anybody, a hedge fund manager or a banker or somebody that you spoke with early on in your entry into luxury housing that it didn't really go so well? It was one of those stumbling moments that you've gone back to later on a different property or project or something and had a different conversation with?
No, I can't say I have. I wish that opportunity did arise as I got more seasoned.
Yeah.
You know, if it wasn't for them, and believe it, a lot of these guys were very polite as well.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for them, it just wasn't for them. And I picked up on that right away. But, you know, there were a few gentlemen who it wasn't for them, and I've continued the relationship with them just because they were impressed what I was trying to do.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So what is it now that you're more established in the luxury market? What is it you're doing in that market currently?
Well, again, we have a few luxury acquisitions, and why we found another reason why we got into that particular space was the ability to monetize. Okay. You know, we're accustomed to long-term rentals, short-term rentals, which is great. As you start moving up into that asset class, you could have a house where you could do a photo shoot for 20 grand for the morning. You could throw an event. You could have a launch party for a company. you could do a lot of things. And
Yeah.
it just boils down to the marketability of the home and the creativity you want to put into it.
No, that's fantastic. For those who might be thinking about getting into that market and aren't sure where to start, how did you come up with those types of ideas? Did you network with somebody? How do you market a home for that? Because we traditionally think of put it out and get somebody, a renter living in it.
Right.
How do you market and find people that want to do photo shoots and events and things like that?
Sure. You have those people in your markets. You have wedding planners in your markets. You can hit them up and say, hey, listen, would you want to throw a wedding here? I'm sure you have an influx on the heels of COVID of people who are looking for wedding venues. You could reach out to them. You could reach out to photographers in your market and say, hey, I have this home. I'd love to, do you have anyone who'd like to do a photo shoot here? You could reach out to businesses to vertically integrate and do cross promotions with them. Hey, if you guys want to throw a party here, we could do this for you. And so all those resources, just depending on which direction you want to go, are essentially at your fingertips within that market.
Oh, that's great. Do you have any recommendations on how someone picks a market that might, what certain place that might be better for, the luxury market than others? I mean, you probably don't want to go to like nowhere's Oklahoma to get into the luxury market, right?
Very true as well. I mean, I honestly, I wouldn't recommend New York. I don't know why I started with New York. And I only say that because it is so litigious. The process we had to go through, I don't want to say we wasted time, but a bulk of that was just convincing even our own attorney that things like this were feasible. And, we settled on a creative solution that was kind of a mixture of a hybrid deal and what's more palatable here in New York. So I wouldn't suggest starting in New York until you have more of a presence, I should say, and maybe a more legal brass. But I would suggest places like Florida. I mean, there's definitely a lot of attraction around Florida. It's definitely it's not seasonal. I mean, we have a lot of our properties are seasonal. Now we do make up for it with the rent because the summers are so attractive, but a place like Florida is not seasonal. You could crush that all year long.
Gotcha. Sounds like there were some learning moments in the initial startup with the the legal things and all of that kind of stuff as far as getting going in New York, huh?
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
Even our own attorney wasn't convinced what we were doing. We had to educate him to a degree. We finally got him on board, and then it became the task of educating the sellers, a seller's attorney, which is not fun either, but we powered through.
I'm curious, what was that process like as far as educating these attorneys? Did you use outside resources? Did you just have the conversations with them? How did you get them on board?
It was a lot of conversation, and just pushing it. Attorneys don't typically like to put out more work than they have to if they're going to get paid anyway. A lot of them were misconstruing assume the loan with subject to, and they would just, it was just pushing it. It was just the persistence of, no, man, we can do this. Don't tell me no. It's yes. Come on. Are you going to be our attorney or not? And just the persistence of pushing it. That's the only thing I can really equate to it.
Gotcha. So first off, know what you can do and be strong in that, right? Like know that you can do this and be confident in what you're asking them to do. Yeah. Oh,
love that.
That's great.
You guys are freezing just a little bit. Are you getting it on my end too?
Oh,
I am a little cold. No.
I think we're catching a little bit of a delay from you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's on your end, Ryan. I'm not sure, but that's what I was thinking.
Okay. Is it bad?
No, not terrible.
Okay.
This is the behind the scenes. We're producing live.
This is the raw stuff.
And we also don't edit our stuff, people. So here you go. You get the real stuff.
That's right. We're flailing on the podcast. It's the Flailing podcast. So.
We sure are. Can't edit that, We're waiting for Ryan to actually fall out of his chair like he said he did on a previous interview this week. But I know, we can definitely kind of segue into the private equity talk now too. If you'd like to kind of give us I know that I think this is probably the first place you're announcing some of this stuff. So,
You're
give us
starting a new venture.
Yeah.
yeah. Tell
That's
us about it and where you're at with it and how it came about and everything.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I stumbled upon just private equity in general and starting a fund. And I started doing a lot of research on my own. Now, in the real estate space, I was in a transitional period. And I started becoming more and more disenchanted with the day-to-day, talking to people. Not that I don't like talking to people, but just, the everyday task it took to get it going. I've always viewed myself as more as a managerial person. That's always been my strong suit: leading, executing, putting a team together, saying this person goes here, that person goes there. And I'm very good at finding the right people and putting them in the right places. And I've also always known and felt to a degree that proximity to capital is all the power. All the power you need right there. If you can control and be close to money, doesn't have to be yours, and probably shouldn't be if you want to make a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's all the power right there. That's the key to everything.
That's a good nugget.
I think that's
right
what
there.
we've all learned. Yeah, we've all learned that.
Yeah.
Whether it's your projects or other, just anything, you've gotta have some access to funds.
Exactly. So as I was transitioning out of, what I'm doing in real estate, I started researching funds, and more particularly private equity. And I started to feel almost immediately an affinity towards this space. Like I finally found the vehicle where I can reach my full potential as a person and an entrepreneur. Everyone has a different version of financial freedom, but I'm doing this to reach my full potential for myself and for my family. And I finally feel, and Heather could attest to this, and we'll talk about Heather's involvement in a minute, just the obsession I feel for this. I felt it to a degree in real estate, but I didn't find myself, never felt that connection. And I dove in head first. I started researching as much as I can. It's just, it's meant for me. It's corny as it sounds, it's meant for me. And I finally feel like I found the thing that's going to allow me to reach all of my goals, utilize all of my skill sets. And yeah, that's it. It's pretty
That's
cool.
so exciting.
Such a great feeling.
Yeah. And that's why I know I'm going to be successful with it. And I'm so excited about it because the passion goes right hand in hand with the execution. If you're passionate and you're confident and you don't give up, which I don't, there's no way I'm going to fail at this. I know that because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
And what is it about starting a fund? That do you even have a way to quantify it? Why you are so interested in it? Because I know you said your managerial background and things like that. But was there anything else that stands out to you? Why?
Well, yeah, it was the managerial background. It was the proximity to capital. It was the culture as a whole. As I elevated from the luxury space, it was almost one step higher than that. The verbiage, the terminology, the way people present themselves, the way they talk on Zooms. It sucks you right in. It feels very high level, and it just gets you involved. It makes you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. It's a major sense of accomplishment, taking that next step up. I've reached this level. Where do I go from here? This is the next level. And it's building something and accomplishing something and feeling fulfilled in doing that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And it allows you to scale. And what I love is kind of what we spoke about earlier, models of things. Okay. Putting a fund together. If you launch a $5 million fund, which is considered small potatoes on the fund scale, right? The mechanics of that, if you can manage that fund, make sure the distributions go out and the capital calls go in and all the other stuff, and everything's filed appropriate with the SEC. And, if everything is lined up and you can effectively as a team manage and run that $5 million fund, then there's really nothing stopping you from running a $100 million fund,
right?
half a $1 billion fund.
Yep.
It's just a model. And that's what I really like. It's just a model.
Yep.
It could be done at a small scale. It could be done at a large scale. The choice is yours.
Get the model, get the systems in place, get it running. Now all you need is to get bigger systems for your bigger, you've got the systems, you've got the proof of concept. Now you just grow it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it
then you
almost
can have multiple funds too, you know,
that was
you know,
yeah. That was another attractive aspect to it. Once your fund is essentially up and running, not that I like to shy away from hard work, but it's essentially automated to a degree. Once the fund is up and running and the capital's in and the acquisitions are performing, it's automated and you could focus on another fund. And it's really important per fund to be really specific and become an expert, or what they like to call a category king in this fund. You want to find your blue ocean, not a red ocean. You don't want to jump into a space where you're competing with Amazon or Google.
Yeah.
You really want to niche it down, do your research and development, and find that blue ocean and become an expert in it. And then that's what's going to get your limited partners or your investors involved and excited to do a deal with you.
Yeah. Do you know what your niche is at this point, or are you still in the exploratory phases?
Still in the exploratory phases. So to simplify it as best as possible, there are 3 key roles in a fund. Okay? There is the fund manager, which would essentially be the role I'm taking on. Then there's what we like to call a chief investment officer. Okay. It's that person's job or their branch to find these products, find these investment vehicles, hone in, do the research and development. Okay. And really get dialed in. Now, we chose the private equity space. We think there's a lot of opportunity in buying and scaling businesses, especially being able to take these businesses public for an exit strategy. So it's the chief investment officer's job. And we've actually just onboarded our chief investment officer. And I spoke with him this morning, and he's got a lot of cool ideas on what particular space he wants to jump into. And he's just as excited as I am. And that's how I know anybody I want to be involved. I need that reaction. I need someone to say, hey, Ryan, I'm obsessed, because I've spoken to a lot of people about this, or potentially tried to onboard a lot of people. And it's always a great conversation and everybody gets excited, but I need that person to feel as obsessed as I am. And this gentleman is just as obsessed as I am, and really excited to see where he goes with it. Because the next step in our process would be curating what's called our investment thesis. That's essentially a piece of paper saying, hey, what we're going to do with this fund, how long we're going to do it, and how much money we're looking to raise.
Yeah.
What I think is so cool about that is that our capital raiser, okay, who's going to go out now and raise capital off that paper.
Yeah.
Not an asset.
Right.
We can start getting commitments and locking people into our fund before we even have a project under contract.
Yeah.
Before we even take it to market, which is so cool to me. We're creating a banking institution. It's like getting a pre-approval letter for our business, whichever number we decide on.
It's a line of credit for your acquisitions.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an amazing way to think about it too.
Sorry, go ahead. I talked over you there, Heather.
Oh, no. You're fine. No, it's an amazing way to think about it too. Because I mean, doesn't everybody want a pre-approval letter for however much they want it for whatever they're doing? You know, it's amazing.
We decide the number based on our investment thesis. We say, okay, this is the amount of acquisitions we're going after. This is going to be our projected IRR. These are going to be our returns to the limited partners. We're going to need X amount of capital for this fund. And it all becomes circular. Then we goes out and raises. Then once we have the commitments, it gives the chief investment officer a little bit more oomph to kind of really dial in to target these particular assets. And it just becomes this really cool circular process.
That's fantastic. As you've stepped up to this next level and as you're getting this fund going, what are some of the struggles you've run into and some of the lessons you've learned from that?
The struggles, I wouldn't say a struggle, but what is very important, and I've started to realize that this is a non-negotiable, you have to have the right people.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to have the same people who share the same passion. You have to have the same people who have the same work ethic. You have to have the same people who just want to collaborate the same way you do. It's vital. It's vital to any organization, and you cannot skimp out on that process. And plus, you have to have people that you like. If I'm going to be around you, I gotta want to hang out with you. If I can't stand you, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen.
So like, as I mentioned, I'm going to assume the role of fund manager, which I'm very excited about. We have our acquisition specialist, our chief investment officer, and we currently also have a capital raiser who's actually have an expert in this particular area.
Who is your capital raiser?
It's a good question.
I hear they've raised a lot of capital over this last year. That's what I understand.
We're letting the cat out of the bag here, folks.
Somebody's turning red
super-
up in the corner
I'm
there.
super excited. Yeah, no, it's something that I've been doing a lot of, obviously, with my other business partner, and this was something kind of near and dear to my heart too. Over the past, I don't know, 6 months, I've sort of, in my own way, I've been obsessed with kind of learning about it in a little bit of a way. And then, Ryan actually came to me recently and sort of felt like this might be a good role for me. So we started talking, and it just ended up being kind of like what you said, Ryan. It was like I became obsessed with the idea of it actually being a real thing then, instead of just
I can testify to that.
I was, it just obsessed with it, and definitely know that you're obsessed with it in the way that you're, handling everything and soaking everything in and learning it, and just even the terminology that you've been just over even the past few weeks, just learning the terminology and everything. And I've seen a big difference in how you're speaking about it and things like that. So I just, really appreciate it. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, is like being with the right people for the right partnerships is really important. So yeah, I'm really excited about the team.
Yeah, we're very excited to have Heather on board as well. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, I feel like what Heather's doing now is 20 times harder than what she's going to be doing moving forward. She's raising capital now at a very substantial level, but with a different type of clientele, which in my particular opinion is a lot harder. She's going to be put into spaces where she's going to be talking to billionaires, talking about funds, talking to institutions, raising $15-20 million. And I feel like Heather especially is going to thrive in those scenarios. And I feel what she's doing now is definitely harder, no question. So we're very excited to have her on board. And
yeah,
we're working diligently to get this investment thesis going. Our mentor is Bridger Pennington. He's a young gentleman based out of Utah. Shout out to Bridger. He's incredible. He's incredible. He comes from a family of fund managers. His brother is a fund manager / lawyer. His father runs a deca-billion-dollar fund. This guy also, 127 funds. It's wild stuff. And the community is insane.
I think I believe he's my neighbor here. I may need to go swing by and just have a chat.
Yeah, hang out.
He's down the road here in Utah, so
yeah. I mean, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy to talk to for sure. So we're in with him. He's mentoring us. He's making sure all the filings are going to be appropriate with the SEC, because there's a lot of nuance to that could jam you up if it's not done appropriately. And just to be hyper aware of it and hyper focused on it, because this is a big undertaking. But when done the right way and done with the appropriate care, it can be very, very lucrative and exciting.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest thing I'd like to touch on too, is just like how I think for all three of us, that are going to be in this is a big step out of our comfort zone, and we are for sure flailing forward in it and just really getting in, and it's going to be a stretch for us. But I think anything that you undertake should be stretching you pretty hard. So what would you say what would you think that is going to be a big learning? What have you learned so far? What would you say? What's the biggest way that you've flailed forward in it? Is just getting started in it, or anything else?
Is getting started and being able to hold myself in the conversations, again, because we're working with Bridger and his team, and you can log into one of his Zooms any day and you could be sitting with somebody who runs $1 billion fund. And having the confidence and the wherewithal to have these conversations and ask the appropriate questions and not worry. It could be a little intimidating. I'm going to ask a question and I don't want him to laugh at me because I'm new, because he runs $1 billion fund, but I know I have to ask this question because I need this answer, because I need to know, because I want to be successful with it. So flailing forward in the sense that I'm forcing myself into these spaces, just similar to what I did in the luxury space, because this needs to be my network. That should be everyone's goal who's an entrepreneur, to get into these type of rooms and flailing forward in the sense of kind of putting, I don't want to say it's pride, but just, if I look stupid, I look stupid, but I got to learn. I'm here to
Yeah.
learn.
Don't be afraid
And
to
that's a
fail. Don't
mindset.
be afraid to ask the questions.
Yeah, you have
Yep.
to.
That's
You
a
really have
mindset thing because I've had a hard time sometimes asking questions because I'm like, oh, I should know this, or you just get in your head about what you should know, how you should be in front of certain people. And so
Mhm.
I like the fact that you're just like, it's okay. I can look
Yeah,
like a fool if that's what happens. And probably you're not going to, but it's just, you just got to get out of your own way.
exactly, and that's what I realized too, like, it's in my own head. Like,
Yeah.
I don't look like a fool. I think I'm gonna look like a complete doofus, but I don't. I'm asking a normal question to a guy who's supposed to supply me with the answer, and a lot of times they'll say, "Great question. Thank you for asking." So it's just, again, a huge mindset shift and just forcing yourself into these situations, touching upon what Heather said before. If you don't feel uncomfortable, then what are we doing? What are we really doing here? We're just going to do
Yeah.
things that are
Yeah.
comfortable for their entire lives?
If you don't feel
Yep.
uncomfortable,
And I
you need
think,
to get in a bigger room.
That's it. I
Yeah.
want to be
yes.
I want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
No, and I think that was something I learned early on to being in sub 2 and the Gator communities was I was terrified to go up and ask, pace a question up on these Zooms, in front of hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And I even had my question written out on I'm like reading from it because I'm like shaking so bad.
Right.
But what it did, not only it answered my question, it now lives on in perpetuity because now people are watching that in the vault, and people are coming to me saying, oh my gosh, that question was so helpful. Thank you for asking that. Thank you for putting yourself out there, and or whatever they said. And they, at the time I was only thinking of myself and what question I needed answered. And it ended up being, to where it's now helping other people. So I think not only is it you're able to help yourself and, bridge communication with new relationships that you're forming with these people that you're asking questions to, but you're also helping other people by asking those questions, which I think is really just a unique opportunity.
Yeah. And I think that's a very underrated thing you just pointed out there. By you asking a question and putting it out there, chances are somebody else has the exact same question.
Mm-hmm.
So
or maybe they don't.
Or maybe they don't
even have.
Right.
And
But
they're
they
just
should.
like, whoa.
They should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should have
Yeah.
it. Because
So
that's
that
what
actually
I've gotten.
Yeah, that changed my perspective right there, to be honest with you. I never thought of it that way, that I could be asking this question for everybody in the Zoom right now. So
yeah. Because there's been plenty of times where I haven't had the thought, maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm whatever, maybe it didn't come to me. But it's such a good question. And then they ask it and I go, dang. And then that triggers you to have a question, so it just, I really think like we're meant to ask questions when we have one. And hopefully everyone here is able to ask questions to, whomever they can get, we're always in our communities, we're always happy to help people and answer questions when we can. And so, I think this should just be a little motivation to, if you've got something pressing or you've got something going on you need help with, reach out to us, reach out to anybody that you can, that's even a few steps ahead of you. It doesn't even have to be the person, with the most amount of information, just a little further than you.
Yeah.
Very cool way to look at it.
Great. Well, you've got some exciting things coming up, man. That's really great. The fund is going to be amazing. We'll have to have you back on once it gets up and officially going and being funded, and talk a little bit more about that whole process and what you guys, kind of your thesis when that's developed, and go a little bit more into that. But this has been an amazing experience. I've learned so many great nuggets, takeaways, tips, and tricks, from just kind of a brief synopsis. Know your market. Be courageous, take the chance, even if everybody else is running away, especially if you know your market. Take that shot, get in there, do something, because doing something is going to be better than just sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. Don't be afraid to level up. If you are comfortable where you're at, it's time to make the next step and get in a bigger room and take on bigger projects. And don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of looking like an idiot. You need to ask the questions to learn, because that's going to be the way that you're going to be able to function with these higher level people and higher level deals. And then, always ask the question, always learn the terminology, and get out of your own way. essentially. Take the shot, get out of your own way, change your mindset, and just start taking action and move forward.
And flail forward.
Yeah. Did any other last pieces of advice you'd have for us, Ryan?
No, I think you surmised that to a T. I think you covered every aspect. It was essentially the cliff notes of the entire conversation.
Yeah, he's great at those summaries. I swear, I let him do those all the time. I'm like, you do that.
Did you write that down? I got to know. Did you write that down? If that was off the top, that was impressive.
I did not write it down. No.
No, that was off the top. No. Well, where can we find you, Ryan? If anyone wants to reach out and connect with you, where's the best places?
And what do you need?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, good question. So you could find me on Facebook. My name is Ryan Joseph McDermott on Facebook. Or you can give me a call at 516-343-0772. I'm currently in the midst of, revamping my social media handles. So I'll have a LinkedIn page up and running shortly. I'll have my Instagram revamped, all the necessary things I need to put forward. And yeah, what I would probably need, if I'm being 100% honest, is somebody who knows how to do that. I'm what they like. I'm technology impaired, as they say. So anybody who has any integration skills or could help me in that sense, that would be a very welcomed thing.
Great.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah. Well, anybody that's all those techies out there, hit him up, help him out with his social media, and learn about funds and raising capital along the way.
Yeah.
The fun with funds.
Yeah, fun with funds. Yeah, they don't want to start that conversation, like I told you, Dustin. They'll be like, Ryan, I got you, bro. You're doing a fund. You're launching a fund. I get it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your Instagram, not your fund now. Okay.
I just do this job you hired me to do, and then
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Heather, where can people find you?
Oh, well, they can find me at Instagram. I am Heather Witzig. They can find me at YouTube. I am Heather Witzig at I am Heather Witzig, I believe is what it is. And, I'm also on Facebook, Heather Witzig as well, because that's who I am.
There you go.
How about you, Dustin?
Yep, you can find me on Facebook, Dustin Seiler. I'm Instagram and YouTube at @the_Dustin J. And both of us have our links in our bios. If you want to know more about Sub 2, if you want to know more about what we're doing, you can connect with us there, schedule a call. We'd love to talk to people. If you got any value out of this, please let us know. We'd love it if you smash the like and subscribe. Isn't that what they say? Isn't that
That's what they all say.
So,
I love that you said that.
We appreciate everybody that checks these out. If you are so inclined, we'd love a subscribe or a like, or any comments. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, somebody you'd like to hear us interview, or if you have a story and you'd like to come in and talk with us about it, reach out, contact us, let us know. We want to talk about what you're learning, the steps you're taking, and how you're flailing forward. And in the meantime, until we're back again, get out there and do some flailing.
Woo! All right, guys. Bye, everyone.